Good morning. You're going to enter a realm in another dimension. We're going to find a lot of sight and sound effects of awesomeness. There's going to be weirdness. There's going to be a lot of laughter and fun and cringy stuff. You're going to wonder, wow, why am I here? But then you're going to enjoy yourself and say, or hopefully say, wow, I want to see more of that because that looks cool.
You failed your Rod Serling impression at the beginning.
You said that at the beginning. But welcome everyone. This is the history of Ultraman, technically part 1, because I've decided I'm going to be covering this franchise over the next few years worth of conventions and splitting the panels up into multiple parts. This one I'm going to cover, have a heavy focus on the Showa era, which is pre-1988, and I'm going to cover some basics for what comes after throughout the 90s and 2000s. But the majority of that stuff's going to be saved for other panels. So I'll be like, we're sorry, but your whole panel's in another panel. Alright, first, let's just start with the intro.
So that is Ultraman with all the silly monsters.
So in the early 1900s, a guy by the name of Eiji Tsuburaya was born. He was when he was growing up as a child, he saw a movie and became very enamored with how the movie worked. He bought himself a projector just to actually take it apart and see how everything ran in it, because he was really wanting to learn how special effects worked. He then went on, during World War II, he was hired by a movie studio to make propaganda war films, to get rid of America and all that stuff. He was then hired by Toho in the 1950s to be their special effects wizard for their upcoming movies, one of which is this unknown movie called Godzilla. Godzilla became such a huge hit that he ended up becoming the guy in charge of special effects for many of Toho's films, until he created his own television studio in the mid-1960s. In Japan, they really wanted a show that was like The Twilight Zone, because The Twilight Zone was such a big hit in America, and even in Japan when they were showing it, it was a big hit. So TV stations were like, we want our own Twilight Zone. So Tsuburaya decided to create a series called Ultra Q that was a Monster of the Week show, where they'd have these scenarios. It'd be a different story each week. There were a couple of reoccurring characters that would show up throughout the series, but for the most part, they were standalone stories. And it's one of the reasons why kaiju in cinema started to decline in sales during that period, because the audience is like, well, why would I go pay to see this on a movie at this when I can just watch it every week on my TV? So the first series was meant to be, like I said, the Twilight Zone with monsters, aliens, and whatever. So here's a little look at Ultra Q.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. a dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into...
Give up for all of those suit actors doing every one of those monster things.
Also, for those of you that are farther in the back, just to let you know, most of what you're going to see is subtitled, so I don't know if you want to move up or not, if you're fine where you are. Up to you. So after Ultra Q was a huge success in Japan, the television studio was like, this is cool, but we want something with a superhero. So Tsuburaya decided to create a superhero. He would be red and silver. It was meant to be, the silver was meant to represent like the metal you would see on a UFO, whereas the red of the costume was supposed to be muscles. Obviously, at that time, you couldn't make a full-on muscle suit, so it ended up coming up a little bit different. But if you guys know Power Rangers, I always make the joke then, does this mean that Lord Zed is an Ultraman? Because he's red with metal on it. So this show started in Japan in the late 1966, and it took off immediately. It was about an alien cop, as it were, comes to Earth chasing after a criminal monster, accidentally kills a guy, and says, well, I'm sorry, so I'm going to resurrect you and we'll share bodies. You can transform into me and I will fight evil for you. They were part of and this guy was part of this organization called the SSSSP, or to shorten it, Science Patrol, because one thing you'll notice in all these Ultra series going forward is that the majority of them have some type of military scientific organization that will go after monster attacks. And when he would transform into Ultraman, he would have this thing called a beta capsule that would have him transform, because they wanted to have that there was an item he could use so that he could accidentally lose it. So that sometimes he might not be able to transform into Ultraman because, oh no, where did I put that? Or it got stolen from me. And the other thing they did with Ultraman, the other caveat, is they gave him a 3-minute time limit where he could only transform for 3 minutes, because they wanted to have the audience know that he's not totally invincible, even though technically speaking that 3 minutes lasts as long as the plot requires. It's like Dragon Ball with the 5-minute time limit till Namek goes boom. So here are a small amount of clips from Ultraman.
I'm so sorry!
君は一体何者だ？
M78 星雲の宇宙人じゃ。
M78 星雲の宇宙人？
そうだ、遠い宇宙からレムラーを宇宙の墓場に運ぶ途中、レムラーに逃げ出されて、それを追って地球に来た。
レムラー？
宇宙の平和を乱す悪魔のような怪獣だ。申し訳ないことをした。 早田隊、その代わりに私の命を君にあげよう。
君の命を？君はどうなる？
君と一同体になるなら、そして地球の平和のために働きたい。
これは何だ？
ベータカプセル。
ベータカプセル？
困った時にこれを使うのだ。
君
Interestingly enough, if you know DC Comics, there's an alternate universe of an evil Superman named Ultraman.
I remember back when 4Kids had the dub for the Ultraman Tiga show, the intro for the show very cheekily put in the lyric, when super is not enough.
Yeah, I actually have a comment about that, because I don't know if you, who might have not heard me earlier, because I reviewed the Ultraman series, I actually have a joke about that Tiga dub in my Ultraman Tiga review I'm currently editing. Alright, so, after Ultraman ran, and again was another ratings hit, the television studio wanted something new. They wanted more of the same, but Tsuburaya wanted something new. So he decided, instead of having a continuation to Ultraman, especially because they had several scripts the television network rejected, he said, well, you rejected all these scripts, so we need to do something else. He created another series that was originally going to be about a military team. Then they decided to put a superhero in it and combine them all, which was called Ultra 7. This series was about a group of called the Earth Defense Force, and a small team known as the Ultra Guard, who were defending the planet from alien invaders. The director of this show lived in Okinawa, so every time he would travel back and forth to Tokyo, he'd have to show to the American military proof that he has a reason to go there and a reason to go back to Okinawa. So he ended up doing this show as partially a social commentary on the American, what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, occupation of Japan. And it started, instead of having an Ultraman where the main character died and was brought back and shared a body with Ultraman, in this one, Ultra 7 came to Earth, met a man who was very valiant and brave, and he decided to clone himself to look like that guy and named himself Dan Moriboshi. So Dan is the Ultra 7 at the same time, so even though he uses a device to transform these eyes, he also has to, he basically just does that to power up. He's the actual Ultra character itself. He also has a bunch of capsule monsters, or a trio of capsule monsters, which is little capsules that he throws and they turn into a giant monster, which is actually the inspiration for both Dragon Ball, because that's where Akira Toriyama got the idea for Bulma's capsule technology, and Pokemon. And the other interesting thing about Ultra 7 is they did a lot of experimentation with this show. So they would have a lot of interesting camera angles. One of the guys who worked on both Ultraman and Ultra 7, Akio Jisoji, is Hideki Anno's influence for creating Evangelion. Because he loved the way Jisoji's camera angles, because Jisoji would have a lot of close-up facial shots. Sometimes he would have black backgrounds with text in them, which is something Anno does. Yes?
There's also more to the Anno Ultraman connection with Evangelion, considering that part of the reason that the Eva 01 is the way it is was because as a child, Anno was terrified of the original Ultraman.
Yep.
Not to mention the fact that Nerve is basically a twisted version of Science Patrol in the first
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that that the Evas themselves being biological in nature as opposed to purely robotic is meant to evoke how Ultraman was just a very, very big alien.
Alright, so here are some clips from Ultra 7.
I thought I did.
君たちの計画は全て暴露された。おとなしく降伏しろ。我々の実験は十分成功したのさ。実験？そうだ。赤い結晶体が人類の頭脳を狂わせるのに十分効力があることが分かったのだ。教えてやろう。我々は人類が互いにルールを守り、信頼し合って生きていることに目をつけたのだ。地球を壊滅させるのに暴力を振るう必要はない。人間同士の信頼感をなくすればいい。人間たちは互いに敵視し、傷つけ合い、やがて自滅していく。 忘れるな。地球は狙われているんだ。今の我々の力では守りきれないような強大な侵略者がきっと現れる。その時のために超兵器が必要なんですね。決まってるじゃないか。侵略者は超兵器に対抗してもっと強烈な破壊兵器を作りますよ。我々はそれよりも強力な兵器をまた作ればいいじゃないか。それは血を吐きながら続ける悲しいマラソンですよ。
Yeah, so you saw, Ultra 7 was pretty violent. He will rip a monster apart, and this would continue throughout the entire Showa era, where the Ultra heroes, sometimes you're like, are you a hero? Because you seem quite violent. But another aspect I liked was the whole, well, if we build a bomb, another planet might build a bigger bomb. Well, then we'll build an even bigger bomb. And it made me think of this old emoji that I used to see where one smiley face would pull out a knife, another pull out a sword, another pull out an axe, another pull out a chainsaw, so the other one pulled out a laser beam.
Hey, kind of a commentary on arms races.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah, so...
allow a line shaft to get...
So...
they're too big, you just point them at each other and no one just dares to shoot each other.
So after Ultra 7 had ended, Tsuburaya decided to just take a short break from the Ultra franchise because he's like, I've got this perfect trilogy there, let's leave it there for right now. Unfortunately, AG died before ever being able to bring back another Ultra series, so his son took over as being in control of the franchise, and in 1971 released what is called The Return of Ultraman. Initially, they were going to have it be the original Ultraman from the first series be back. Only they decided, well, you know what? Let's just make it be a different character. So this Ultraman comes to Earth and witnesses a guy named Go, who's a race car driver, rescuing a boy and a dog from a monster attack and dies. So the Ultraman goes, okay, cool, and eventually he becomes known as Ultraman Jack. He's like, cool, I will take the host of that guy because he's a hero and we'll save the world together, and Go gets hired by that version of the Science Patrol that's ongoing on Earth at that time.
Oh snap.
自分の危険も顧みず子供を助けようとした君に感動した。だから君に命を預ける。
いや
again? This place is a necrophiliac's nightmare.
お父さんの事故は警察もマットも調査して。
あの時本当に怪獣が出たんだ。
嘘をつくな。
That's just a little taste of the return of Ultraman, which is a really good show. And I meant to mention this a moment ago, but Ultra 7 is my personal top favorite Ultraman series. I always tell people, if you're going to watch, start with Ultraman 7, and you're not sure where to start, you don't want to start at the beginning, 7 is the one that I say go to first. As I said, there's a lot of weirdness in it, and it's just a good show all around. And I forgot to mention also, in Ultra 7, he will also fight monsters small-sized, not just giant-sized like the other Ultra series usually have him do. So there will be some episodes where he'll show up, he'll transform, do a little thing with a small-sized thing, and then that's all he is for Ultra 7. Whereas Return of Ultraman pretty much continues the formula that the first series did, where monsters attack, usually he transforms into Ultraman at the last little bit of the show, and we have a great monster fight for the end of the episode.
If you're going into the past, we should be going into the future.
We should be going forwards, not backwards, not sideways, not forwards, and twirling. Always twirling.
He should never watch Simpsons. That's all I say.
Fun fact, the debut episode, the first episode of Return of Ultraman was directed by the Ishiro Honda, who, as we've established, directed that obscure little film known as Godzilla.
Yep. Alright, so Ultraman Ace. Return of Ultraman was a ratings hit again, so they just continued, alright, we're going to start another Ultra series directly after Return of Ultraman ends, which is going to feature 2 characters turning into the Ultraman, a male and a female. They would transform, they combine, they would use a ring that would have their powers combined, they merge into one. People in Japan hated that concept. Kids were like, why is there a woman in my Ultraman? So they decided that halfway through the show, they wrote her out and had it that she goes away and the main character, Hokuto, takes over as being the sole body embodiment for Ultraman Ace. Ace also does have what I consider to be one of the most incompetent of the military teams out there, because a lot of the times when something occurs, they'll write it off as being a hallucination. They'll be like, oh, those people were just crazy. Monster attacks? Really? You think there's a monster attack in this thing? No way. And also Ace is notable because it introduces the father of Ultra, who is the second big top dog of the Ultra world.
Planetary powers, activate!
当たり前のティーカップなんですよ、これは。俺たちは見た通りを言ってるだけだ。信じられないことですが、あり地獄だったんですよ。
間違いありません。確かに引きずり込まれたんです。
しかし、8人もいた中でどうして1人だけが引きずり込まれたんです？おかしいとは思いませんか？無理もねえな、このバカバカ劇じゃ。みんな夢を見たんだよ。
バイバイ。
警視庁の主張するコーグラフィー説を覆すだけの確証がなければ我々が動く必要ない。分かったな。はい。
Yeah, Ace is not one of my favorites, and I have one subscriber who's like, "Oh, do you always have to be mean on Ace?" Yes, I do. But funny enough, though, I have later on a Blu-ray copy to give away of Ace, courtesy of Mill Creek, who has licensed the Ultraman franchise in America. After Ace came out and had the so-so ratings, Tsuburaya was set, and the TV network said, "Let's make a more child-friendly Ultraman series. It's going to be very much around kids. It's going to be based around fairy tales. We're going to call it Ultraman Taro for Momotaro. And it's a very weird show."
And we should use quotation, made for kids.
Yes, it gets weird. Like the commander of the military organization, he'll pick people to go out on patrol based on what they had the night before. He'll be like, "I had curry last night, so who had curry last night? Okay, you're going out for patrol."
Rather than explain, let's show them the craziness.
I'm going to. And yes, it's really, really weird. And then, but again, remember, this one is for kids.
ゆうべカレー食べた者いるか？はい。はい。そうか。私もゆうべカレー食べた。よし。東と南原に調査を命じる。は？
Some vocal never is good, but then again some vocal like Cletus the slack jaw Yoko.
That was Mojo, actually.
太郎は小さなカニたちを殺したのではなかった。巨大化することのないように特殊光線を浴びせたのだ。
これを見てくださいよ。おいおい、あのワケガニが死んだあたりにはこいつがうじゃうじゃしていますよ。
一月のち、東京湾で美味しいカニが無数に取れた。子供たちもこの時だけは腹いっぱいカニを食べた。これも太郎のおかげなのだ。太郎のささやかなプレゼントだ。
you can clearly see, they did not help the mental health of Japanese children in the 70s.
I'm just not over the fact that the one guy was ripped open and he was full of candy.
Oh,
what it was is he had swallowed people and put them into like colored orbs to digest in his stomach. And the kid you saw like looking at it, he thought his father was eaten. So the reason Taro ripped his stomach out was to try to save the kid's father.
That makes it worse.
The other one also in Taro, you might have noticed the female looking Ultra character at the beginning of the clips. That is the mother of Ultra.
she's very young looking.
So Ultraman Taro, because of its childish nature, lost a lot of the adult fans. Ratings declined even more than they did in Ace because adults were like, well, this
But be aware of this. They just said they didn't want to watch it for its childish nature, but it had more mass murder per capita than any other Ultra series.
Yes, and personally, I think Taro is actually a very fun and engaging series. I think it's one of the best of the Showa. I mean, granted, there's only like a small number to pick from, but anyway, so Ultraman Leo comes around, and Tsuburaya says, well, because ratings were bad at Taro, we're going to make the next Ultra series be grim, dark, and adult. Well, this series tried to do that, but it felt forced. Kids were turned off by it, so kids stopped watching the show halfway through. They tried to do a tonal change a little bit, and then lost the adult audience. So then they tried to do another tonal change and killed off a lot of characters, and they never recovered, so much so that this would be the last live-action Ultra series for 5 years. Leo also introduced a brother to him that would be like the tuxedo mask of Ultraman. He would occasionally appear to help save the day and then just disappear without any rhyme or reason for it. It also introduced the King, Ultraman King, who would be there to help out when they needed to. And what was the other thing with Leo? What was the other one? There was another point I had on there.
Basically, Leo is Leo.
Oh, and Dan Moriboshi from Ultra 7 became the mentor, and he's the leader.
Oh yeah, he is a terrible mentor.
Yes, he's the leader of the organization in this one. And at the beginning of the show, he gets his leg twisted by the monsters, so he is out of action as Ultra 7 throughout the entirety of the series. So he takes all his anger and frustration out on our character, Ultraman Leo, who has fled to Earth after his planet was destroyed and took up an identity there. So here we go with some of the grim, dark Ultraman.
With all the death.
この時、赤い火の玉となって登場したレオの弟、アストラ。レオ兄さん。アストラ。ウルトラマンキングとはレオの星でも光の国でも必ずどこかにいると言われながらまだ誰も出会ったことのない不思議な力を持った伝説の人なの。レオは第二の故郷地球で正義のために若い命を懸ける。そんなレオに今ウルトラマンキングは殿下の宝刀ともいうべきウルトラマントを与えたのである。
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Right. So first, for the pop of Ultraman Jack, what did I say the name of Leo's brother was?
You didn't say his name.
Raise your yes.
Astra?
Astra. Here you go.
Thank you so much. There's a point about the Ultra King I actually wanted to point out, because it's interesting that earlier on that you joked about Lord Zed being an Ultraman because Robert Axelrod, the belated voice actor behind Lord Zed, was the voice of Ultra King in one of the recent Ultraman movies. That was the last role he did.
Oh, was he real? I did not catch that. Yeah, that's awesome. So, like I said, Ultraman Leo kind of caused a ratings decline. The other thing with Ultraman Leo is oil prices were skyrocketing during Japan at that time. So the cost of production became excessive to the point where they had to cut out a lot of special effects. They couldn't have as many good looking miniatures as they wanted to. So that didn't help matters either. And that's also one of the reasons why they ended up just ending the Ultra series right then and there for a while. They did come back in 1980 with another series called Ultraman 80, which I do not have any clips from, which was recently released on DVD in America. That one was kind of a return to form, sort of. However, in 1979, anime was booming in Japan. Most people, Subaru was like, well, people don't really care about live action shows, and if we do an Ultraman anime, it means we don't have to pay for suits, we don't have to build miniatures. So they teamed up with Sunrise to create an Ultraman series called The Ultraman. And this ended up running for 51 episodes, I believe. And then led right into Ultraman 80's return when Subaraya felt the time was right for Ultraman. Additionally, beyond just this anime series, we had an American-made movie, an Ultraman animated movie by Hanna-Barbera. And actually, for being a Hanna-Barbera production, their animation quality is quite good.
Are you saying there's a problem with Hanna-Barbera?
No, they just came out.
Hey, I like all of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Nostalgia goggles. And then there was another
on the name of Space Ghost and Birdman.
Right?
Oh, I love Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but... And then there was another anime series where the Ultra characters were done in a chibi SD style, where peace has taken over the galaxy, no one's at war with each other, and now they host tournaments. That one I don't think will ever make it to America because it's in license hell as it is, because there's actually a few series out there that Subaraya does not own the license to because of the television network they worked for, or as I'll get into shortly, Ultra series that were done in other countries.
wanted to get into the fight.
Sure you did, you coward.
説は宇宙一の天才科学者ロタニー博士でお送りします。
そこでかわすのかにゃ分身の術でしたか。
対戦するメフィラス大魔王、まだ姿を見せません。不気味です。
花屋だね。
花屋ですか。
君記念式典でウルトラマンとの試合じゃよ。わしなら花束を送るね、絶対。
メフィラス、何かやるつもりか。
どうメフィラス側のゲートが危険な雰囲気だ。
何
メフィラス、
Now there is one other Ultraman anime that I don't cover in here that was released a couple years ago that's based on a manga, which is basically takes the original Ultraman series and says, what if none of those other series happened? And after Ultraman, Hayata, when Ultraman left Earth, leaving Hayata with a new life, had gone on to procreate, and his son retained some of the genes from when Hayata was an Ultraman. And we've got kind of like an Iron Man-esque version of Ultraman where they wear suits of armor rather than grow big. But we have the same type of alien invaders, which is kind of weird that none of them decide to grow big on this planet, but whatever. Yes?
Are the other Ultraman and the other two Ultraman in the Netflix anime that you're talking about?
Yes.
Other series?
Yeah, so actually all of these Ultramen are in that Ultraman anime because 7 is a government agent who carries around a samurai sword. Jack is in there as, if I recall, Jack was an information dealer. Ace is in there. And I don't know if where the first season left off, I don't remember if they had introduced Leo or not. I think Leo comes in later on.
Yeah,
which
Leo wasn't there yet.
Yeah, which is, there's a second season in the works. The story is pretty good. The animation, it's that really awful for me. That CGI hybrid that Netflix loves to do with their shows, so it takes a lot to get used to.
Halfway through the season is when Netflix picked it up for licensing,
Mhm.
and they upped the budget for the animation halfway through.
Yeah, which is probably why I got used to it after a while, because it started to look a little bit better. So after Ultraman 80 hit the airwaves and didn't do so well, Ultraman was off TV again for 15 more years. In the meantime, they decided to try their hands at oh, sorry, yes.
This is something else about regarding Ultraman animation. Although it's not so much Ultraman itself, so it is a parody. It's called Ultimate Girls. Licensed by Media Blasters. I don't think it's been dubbed, but I can tell you more about it later.
Sounds good. And anyone that knows is a Dragon Ball fan, if you know Jackal, the Space Patrolman, he's based on the Ultraman design too. So,
also Kumoricon.
Yeah, oh yeah. So Subaraya decided to try their hand at the international market, and the first thing they did is they went to Australia. They created an Ultraman series for the Australian viewers, which also, if you were born in like 1990 or a kid in 1990, you might have noticed there were Ultraman toys sold in stores like Toys R Us and KB Toys. Those were all actually based on the Australian show, which came to American shores. And from what I hear, because where we lived, it never aired on TV, but from what I hear, where other areas it aired on, it was a pretty successful show, but budget reasons is why it never received anything beyond 13 episodes. So here's a look at Ultraman Towards the Future.
I still have all those toys.
That is awesome.
Mine broke.
Nothing that big's on anyone's side.
It's attacking the monster.
Then what?
Registering life function. It's almost human.
And I want to see it almost dead.
You're just making things worse.
What are you, an expert on these morons?
You don't have to fight.
But they're going to hurt her.
If you really love her, this is not the way to show it.
What would you know about love?
If you keep this up, you'll lose her.
I'm jealous. I love her.
Well, you'll have to show her.
How?
Be smart. Do the right thing.
That, and I didn't know Ultraman was into giving dating advice. The Ultra dating service.
So I actually have a number of comics from Wayne McDuffie that are adaptations of Ultraman for the Ultimate.
So with the success of Towards the Future in America, Tsuburaya decided to team up with an American company to make America their own Ultra series.
They try.
Well, first, the production company said to Tsuburaya, well, if you're going to make an Ultra series, you have to pay for all the effects budget. Tsuburaya thinking, cool, okay, fine, we want the series done, we'll do it. The executives of this company took 78% or like 75% of that budget and went on vacation, left their directors and actors to build the whole show on their own. And so actors had to direct their own scenes at times or direct episodes while they were acting in it, while they were on production. There was even one story when they were taking a costume across to the shooting, the costume fell out of the back of the truck. And these costumes were very immobile. They were made of plexiglass, and which would hurt the actors. And the Ultraman helmet, the suit actors said that they had the wires exposed inside the face so the eyes could light up, so he would constantly get burned on the face during scenes. And the suits were so stiff that, as you'll see, they barely really wanted to move with them, which was a shame because all the monsters in this series are a remake of monsters from the original Ultraman series, and their designs were actually really, really good. Like there's one monster, for those of you familiar with Ultraman, called Red King, who bewilders me because he's not red. He's white and blue. I keep going, why is he called Red King? Well, this show, he was actually red. But everything in this show, I say this show is so bad, it's good. I cringed the entire time I was watching this show to review it, and yet I was like, you know what? This show is garbage, but goddamn, is it so fun to see how bad it was.
I'd rather watch Sharknado.
Don't insult Ultraman. where the mat opens up so the monster can climb through the floor, and then they scoop the mat back up.
Yeah.
13 excruciating episodes.
I kind of feel like it was 13 episodes too long.
You're not wrong.
The worst part is this show wasn't even able to be aired in America because of legal reasons.
Ironic.
He's going.
Ultraman must have convinced him to leave.
Well, my job here is done. Shut up! But you didn't even do anything.
Oh my god.
That one is hard because there's so many good clips I could use for this panel that I'm just like, I wish I could use more, but I don't have time for it. But that one is like, for me, the highlight of the series, just standing there like, okay.
Just pure condensed, this is fine energy.
Okay.
You know, oddly enough, that was so ridiculous, I want to see it.
Oh, check out, you can actually find both these series, because of legality issues, can't be released in America right now. Subaraya can't license them outside of Japan. So there's a guy named Gorizar TV who has put them up on YouTube on his channel. I don't think they've gotten taken down for copyright at this moment.
Basically because it's not worth it.
I do want to point out that I think I appreciate about Ultraman Power is that they went through the effort of actually casting a Japanese man.
Yes, in fact, the actor who plays the Ultraman in the Ultimate Hero, or Powered as called in Japan, is, if you're familiar with Sentai, Kaku Ranger, he's Ninja Black's actor Kane Kosugi, who is the son of Akane Kosugi from the American Ninja movies.
Wasn't he also in
And they also, last year they did an internet ultra special called The Absolute Conspiracy, which is has all the Ultraman appearing in it, and they had Kosugi actually do the English dub voice for this Ultraman.
Also, like, it was his dad, like Shokusugi.
Yeah, Shokusugi, that's what I mean.
He was in like a whole bunch of Golden Globus canon films. Really bad ninja movies.
Yep, in fact, his dad's also in Kaku Ranger as his adopted father for a two-parter. Alright, so after the gloriousness of the Ultimate Hero, Subaraya, they decided to do something with a comedy parody Ultraman thing called Zerth that was a direct-to-video series where the guy's transformation device was a toothbrush. They also did some Ultra 7 direct-to-video movies for the anniversary in the 90s and early 2000s. Airing in 1996 to celebrate Ultraman's 30th anniversary, they brought Ultraman back to TV with a series called Ultraman Tiga. This series was the first one where Ultraman had multiple forms. His design was silver, purple, and red, and he would turn into an all-purple form to create a sky, an agility-based form, or his suit would turn all red to increase his strength. This series was very much a return to the basics of Ultraman, but also he could fight human size like Ultra 7 could. Additionally, the nice thing with this show is every character for the military team has 2 to 3 episodes of development to their name, where some series would go by where you're like, well, is that character ever going to get developed at all? And some of the directors from the original series would come back to direct certain episodes. Like the guy Shozu Hara, who directed a bunch of the early episodes and was the head writer for Super Sentai when it premiered, he directed an episode and wrote an episode that was a tribute to Eiji Tsuburaya, where a monster goes back in time to try to find Eiji Tsuburaya. And Tiga goes back in time and ends up meeting the original Ultraman. Because apparently the Ultraman was a series that was inspired by the actual Ultraman. And even one of the commanders in the Tiga world comes up, oh, Eiji Tsuburaya, I loved it. He did Mothra, Godzilla. They all scared me as a kid. So Ultraman Tiga was a nice return to form, and it's another one of my top favorite series. That's why I was so excited that it's the next series I've been working on for review. So here are some clips.
Are you going to talk about Trigger at all? Ultraman Trigger?
I'll get there.
Ah, okay.
Depending on how much time we have by that point.
Alright.
So, after Ultraman Tiga, which once again was a new boom to the Ultra franchise, not everything is perfect in Tiga because they decided to try their hand at CGI and newer green screen effects, some of which come out very dated looking. But for me personally, the story of Tiga is just so engaging, so well done, especially because all of the monsters featured in this series are entirely brand new to the franchise. It's easy to just overlook the negatives to the show. There were some other Ultra series that followed forth. Dyna, which was a sequel to Tiga. Then they had Gaia, which was set its own universe. And then there was a 65 episode series called Cosmos? Yes, Cosmos. And they had some more direct-to-video series in that time. Things started to slow down a bit, so in 2004, Tsuburaya wanted to make a new Ultraman series that was geared towards those who grew up on Ultraman. So they made an adult-based series called Ultraman Nexus, which started with an older character becoming Ultraman. And the TV network decided, well, it's Ultraman, so we're going to put it in a children's time slot. So no adults watched it. Children hated it because it was too adult for them. It went over their level. So Tsuburaya says, okay, well, since you're putting in the children's slot, we gotta change up our content, lighten the mood. So they had the device that transforms the Ultraman change hands to a younger character and kind of made the show more kid-friendly. Well, the television network was like, well, since this is supposed to be an adult series, we're going to change the time slot to an adult time slot. And so the series ended up ending prematurely, got canceled early because the adults were not interested in watching it because it was too childish for them. So no matter what they did, there seemed to be no communication on this front. Then there were 2 more series that were made, Max and Mabius, that were made to be tributes to the older stuff and everything that came before. So, oh wait, Nexus.
I was gonna say, we haven't even played anything. So the reason he's called Nexus is he can actually summon an interdimensional world for him to fight the monsters in that's separate from the real world, so they don't cause as much damage. It's like the smartest thing they've ever done with an Ultraman. Like, oh, the hero not destroy the city while saving it? Cool! Tell Superman. Tell Zack Snyder. So after Nexus, they did two shows that were tributes to everything that came beforehand, Max and Mabius. Then Subaraya Productions went bankrupt. They released another series, a primetime late night series called Ultra 7X, which felt like it was a hentai that nobody wanted, so they cut out the hentai and threw an Ultraman character into it. It's really bad. In fact, for me, it's one of the worst tokusatsu series ever made. And the company, a pachinko company, purchased Subaraya thinking, hey, Ultraman's profitable. We can make a ton of money off this. So they decide to turn a Ultraman into a premium, or sorry, no, that was after. A television network that was doing subscription-based services, like what we have today with Netflix and all of them, bought Subaraya Productions, and they wanted to turn the Ultra franchise into a premium channel exclusive. So they did this series called Ultra Galaxy Mega Monster Battle, where the characters would use cards to summon monsters, and they would have a battle royal between the monsters. So, and the effects work is not exactly great in this one. It's cool to see new monsters come back, but the green screen is bad.
ever want to see Birdemic, I recommend watching the Riff Tracks version because it's hilarious.
It makes the movie worth watching. Yes.
What year was that last one?
That one was 2009.
And also that monster that Gamera was fighting, that's Red King.
Yeah, that's the Red King I mentioned earlier who isn't red.
Are you going to talk about Red Man at all?
No, I just don't have time for that one.
So not to be confused with that Red Man, the reason Red King is called Red King is because one of the original ideas for the original Ultraman was Red Man.
Yes. They, like I said earlier, he was silver and red, so originally they were thinking of calling him Red Man, which then became its own series later on. So after Mega Monster Battle did fairly well, and you can also think of it as the Pokemon of the Ultraman franchise because everyone's got monsters that they're using to attack each other. Bandai bought part of Subaraya Productions along with a pachinko company from the new TV premium network because Mega Monster Battle didn't reach the numbers they wanted. So they decided, well, instead of doing year-based shows, let's just do a series of movies. And they decided to introduce in these movies an evil Ultraman named Baleo and the son of Ultra 7, whose name is Ultraman Zero.
I press play.
Okay? That is a first.
The Ultraman Zero movies became a huge hit in theaters, so Subaraya and Bandai and the Pachinko Company were like, you know what? Let's start doing a new franchise on television. So they came back with Ultraman Ginga, which was an 11-episode season that they kept the budget really low, so it took place in a school in the middle of a forest, so they didn't have to have many characters, and they didn't have to have any city battles. And the main character had these things called Spark Dolls, because, you know, merchandise. So the Spark Dolls, the cool thing about them is he would use the Spark Doll to transform in Ultraman, but he could also transform into any monster he had the Spark Doll of. And Ginga ended up running for 2 seasons. The following year, Ginga S is what they called it, ran for 16 episodes, and that brought in a second Ultraman named Victory, who was from an underground world. And they ended up, first, you gotta have like your extra hero in all things Toku. He had to be very edgy and broody at first. And then he starts to open up and is no longer a good villain, he's a good guy with everyone else.
Now, one thing you're going to notice as we get through into these modern Ultraman shows, the miniature work and the camera work gets really exceptional, because what they started to do, instead of having year-long shows, they decided to cut the shows down into what they've been running as half-year shows. And so they're giving it a full year's budget for half a year as a show. So production values have increased astronomically. You'll see that they'll start having car alarms going off. Some shots in series they'll show the inside of the building, so you'll see the perspective of an office building with the office furniture as the Ultras are fighting outside. And they'll even continue to use superimposing, where you'll have humans running back and forth throughout the battles going on. After Ultraman Ginga came Ultraman X, which they turned that the Ultraman during a battle became digitized. So he ends up becoming partners with the main character in that show. He's on a device that the main character utilizes to access him and access his abilities, and they continued the sparked out aspect. I will say Ultraman X is probably the most traditional of the Ultraman shows, so if you want to start with something modern, that would be one of the two places I would say to start, and it's probably my third or fourth favorite Ultra series for the Ultraman stuff. And
Seriously?
you impatient one.
You're taking too long.
And this series also featured a monster who, to me, is one of my favorite main villain aliens, who makes me think of lag in a video game. And it also featured the monster with the most deadliest thing to mankind ever.
Any time now?
Now go.
Digimon are the champions. Digimon are the champions.
Touch the rainbow. Taste the rainbow.
Not yet. Not yet. Give it time. I'm sure they're cooking up how much merchandise they can pump out of that. Okay, so Ultraman Orb, which is the other one I will say is a great starter series for if you want to go with the modern stuff. This one featured a wandering Ultraman who comes to Earth and ends up lost his abilities to some of his original form, so he uses a fusion system of cards based on 2 different Ultramen. So his main form is with the original Ultraman and Tiga, and he uses it to fuse together. He then gains a sword that lets him access his original abilities, and he's also one of the few series that has a continuous villain all the way throughout the show from start to finish, and with the guy with a alien by the name of Juggler, who may have killed his lover back in the 1900s. Finally, there's also one thing I love about this is there's a great callback to that Metron episode of Ultra 7 I showed with the alien fish-looking thing that was poisoning people's cigarettes.
いいね、その顔。あの日を思い出す。俺はとうの昔に忘れちまったな。釣れないな。お前との腐れも今日までだ。さあ、ケリーをつけようぜ。ベンスターのカード、お前。作詞作の能力とはこのことだ。マスター、あんたの時代は終わりだ。ついに我が手に来たか、最後のカード。では状況を聞く。偉大なるドン・ノストラム、タバコを吸う人間は減少の一途をたどっております。
幻覚タバコ作戦は中止せざるを得ません。
時代は変わったな。
got a kick out of that line. So after Ultraman Orb came a few more series. We got one that has the son of Baleo, one features two brothers, G, Rube, and then one that features the son of Taro named Tiga. So the last two here, Zet and Trigger, are the most recent series. Zet features an Ultra that becomes one with a man, and then Trigger is meant to be a tribute to Tiga's 30th anniversary this year.
But before everybody starts heading out, because I know people are ending, we wanted to do the last raffle question.
Yes, for a copy of Ultraman Ace, raise your hand. What is the question you wanted to do?
So the question is, what is the one series that ended Ultraman for 15 years?
Ultraman...
Oh, no, you have to raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Ultraman Leo?
Nope.
Ultraman 80.
Ultraman 80. Alright, so the last two clips are just a little sample of the miniature work and camera work that both Zet and Trigger have to offer.
So we'll kind of send you out with this if you do have to leave.
Alright, so any questions on the Ultra franchise? Yes.
So the father with the big horns, he's featured in Ultraman Ace, I think you said?
He premieres in Ultraman Ace, and then it becomes a reoccurring character throughout the franchise.
So in which one is he featured the most?
None really, because he's only in like pieces, bits and pieces. I'd say the movies are the Zero movies. Thank you for joining. Are the most recent things that he'd have more screen time in than others.
Okay. What's your opinion on Redman?
Redman I have not seen, so I can't comment.
You should. It's a.
And we do have cards up here if anyone wants to check out our channel with all the videos and reviews and stuff on there. You had a question?
Yeah. So, have you ever read the Ultraman manga? Which as a sequel to the original.
The one that the Netflix show is based on, right?
Yes.
I have not read it myself yet. I'm a One Piece fan, so I'm kind of, unless something is concluded, I don't want to get into it right now because of One Piece.
Hey.
Like I did Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer this year because they're concluded. So I was like, I'm good there.
That's fair.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys had a good time.